Before I do start this video, make sure to use my TCG player affiliate down below if you're looking for any of these singles that I talk about today. Also, this channel is sponsored by Arcane Fortress. If you're looking for the best deck boxes around, make sure to use my link down below in the description to check them out. One other way you can support the channel is by becoming a patron. There are some great benefits of being a patron to the channel, such as giveaways, deck advice, and more when you do join. Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on PubStomp MTG, and in this video today, I'm going to be discussing another Assassin's Creed commander. And I'll be honest, I've been dreading saying this person's name because a lot of people will crucify me down below in the comments, but I'll try. So the name is Altair ibn Lahad. Besides that point, this is a pretty neat commander and pretty powerful, probably one of the more powerful ones you will see out of Assassin's Creed, so let's read what it does. So for red, white, and a black legendary creature, human assassin with first strike with a 3/3 body. Whenever it does attack, exile up to one target assassin creature card in your graveyard with a memory counter on it. Then for each card you own in exile with a memory counter on it, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of it. Exile those tokens at the end of combat. So overall, this commander is pretty aggressive. Luckily, it does have first strike, so if somebody tries to block with a 3/3, the first strike damage will roll over it. Also, what I do like about this commander, it is exiling cards with memory counters, so if your commander does get removed, they will still have memory counters on the other creatures you do have, so you don't have to worry about them staying in exile. You could just recast your commander, attack with them, and then go ahead and put the assassins with memory counters on them on the battlefield. That's token copies. So there is a lot of things going for this commander. I think it's extremely powerful. Knowing the mana cost of 3 is quite important because a lot of commanders, you want to make sure that you have a low mana cost so that you could go ahead and get in for damage right away. So now I've talked about the commander, let's talk about the cards in the deck, and so let's get right into it. So let's first discuss the game plan of the deck. What are you trying to achieve? Of course, we want to get memory counters on our creatures in the graveyard. The Animus is a great way to do that outside of our commander itself. It does have the ability at the beginning of your end step, exile up to one target legendary creature card from a graveyard with a memory counter on it. So it does act as graveyard hate on any opponent's graveyard, so that's pretty good by itself. Also, you can tap it to make a legendary creature you own on the battlefield a copy of a creature with a memory counter on it. So this absolutely synergizes with our commander because of course we're dealing with memory counters. Our commander will exile assassins with memory counters, but this will exile legendary creatures. But no matter what, when we do attack with our commander, we're going to be putting cards on the battlefield. If they have memory counters, doesn't matter if they're assassin or legendary creature, we can put them onto the battlefield as token copies. So if there's any card to put in your deck, make sure you put this one in the deck because it absolutely synergizes with your commander. Other cards that do synergize with your commander is token doublers. Because our commander is making tokens on attack, we could double the amount of them. Obviously, if they're the legendary creatures, the legend rule will have to apply on that instance. Outside of the instances of legendary creatures, these are just great includes because you're doubling the tokens you make. Also, I did want to highlight species specialist mainly because you could choose a creature type. Obviously, you're going to choose assassins. Whenever a creature you control of the chosen type dies, you may draw a card. So technically, your commander is exiling the tokens at the end of combat. But if you do have some sack outlets, for example, like Goblin Bombardment, you could just sacrifice those before the end of combat, dealing damage, and get those sacrifice triggers going so that you can draw some cards. Also, you definitely want to get some sack outlets to get some extra value out of the tokens you're making because they're going to be dying anyway, so you might as well get some value out of them. So technically assassins are outlaws, so Olivia Opulent Outlaw is incredible in the deck. She is an assassin herself, so that does fit in the theme. She has that ability whenever one or more outlaws you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token, so that's perfect. We could ramp a little bit more, and if we play 3 and sacrifice 2 treasure tokens, we can put 2/1 counters on each creature we control, buffing them up. Plus she does have some pretty good stats of flying in lifelink. She does have that evasion so that we can swing away at least with one creature and connect by dealing combat damage and getting treasure. But I would say the best card, and I mean absolutely the best card you could add into this deck, is the Master Multiplied. So for 4 black and a red, legendary creature, Time Lord Rogue, 4/3 body with Myriad. The legend rule does not apply to creature tokens you control, and triggered abilities you control can't cause you to sacrifice or exile creature tokens you control. So in a weird and funny way, this feels like an infinite money glitch with our commander, because our commander on attack will make those tokens. They can't get exiled at the end of combat because of that ability the master has. And if we make more and more token copies of legendary creatures we control, they won't get sacrificed because the legendary creature rule does not apply to creature tokens you control. So seriously, this is absolutely busted and beyond broken with our commander. I mean, I wouldn't say it's beyond broken, but it heavily synergizes with our commander, making sure we don't sacrifice or exile those tokens. But now let's discuss the assassins you want to be exiling in the graveyard with your commander. Let's focus on ones that have very powerful abilities. I first want to focus on Assassin's Creed characters like Aya of Alexandria and Bayek of Siwa. Aya does have Menace and Lifelink with a 4/3 body, and whenever historic creature you control deals combat damage to a player, create a 1/1 black assassin creature token with menace. This will definitely help widen the board so that we could go for a go wide strategy. And Bayek, depending on the situation, can be a great enabler for closing out the game. It does have double strike, and as long as your turn other historic creatures you control have double strike, you'll notice in this deck there's a lot of historical creatures. Other great includes from the Assassin's Creed universe is Arbaz Mir and Arno Doran. Whenever it or another non-token historic permanent enters the battlefield under your control, Arbaz deals 1 damage to each opponent and you gain 1 life. The downside to this card is the fact that we're making a lot of tokens on the battlefield. This requires non-tokens to enter the battlefield to get that effect, so that's not that great, but it does trigger itself, so that's pretty useful if we're getting more and more token copies of this on the battlefield. And Arno is essentially just an anthem for our assassins, giving them +2/+0, so that's very good by itself. But let's continue the Assassin's Creed train talking about Desmond, Miles, and Merciless Harley Quinn. Desmond is pretty good. He does have menace and gets +1/+0 for each other assassin you control and each assassin card in graveyard. Unfortunately, we're going to be exiling assassins or graveyard, so that's not going to be very important, but it does include assassins you control. Plus, depending on how much damage we do deal with Desmond, the more we can surveil, putting assassin cards in our graveyard for our commander to exile. And Merciless Harley Quinn, I almost want to say Harley Quinn from like Batman, can get us some card draw when it enters the battlefield. You draw a card and lose 1 life. You will lose life in the process, but that's not a big deal. Secret Lair did give us some awesome and amazing reprints like Kessin the Plague and Queen Marchesa. Of course, they're skinned in their own perspective Assassin's Creed universe, so whether you want to deal with experience counters or if you want to just flood the board with assassins with Queen Marchesa, you have that option too. But one card I personally wanted to mention is Ruthless Lawbringer. It is a vampire assassin, so it fits the assassin type. When it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature when you do destroy target non-land permanent, so this acts as a removal on the battlefield. Because we're making token copies, we can just sacrifice one of those creatures we made on ETB and just destroy another creature that may remove one of our creatures. Plus, this is just a great recurable way where we could just destroy creatures on the battlefield, because if it is exiled with a memory counter on it, each time we do attack with our commander, it's just going to enter the battlefield. We destroy a creature while sacrificing another creature we control, maybe with a memory counter. So let me tell you, your opponents are going to be so annoyed with this creature, constantly just removing creatures on the battlefield. But let's focus on the biggest and baddest assassin in the Magic the Gathering universe. Of course, that's Massacre Girl. It's in her name, Massacre. Both versions are extremely powerful in the deck. Massacre Girl Gnome Killer is a little bit better because it can give you card draw. Creatures you control have Wither, and the OG version of Massacre Girl just acts as a great board wipe when it enters the battlefield. So either way, both of these are pretty incredible in the deck. But let's talk about winning the game, because we're making so much tokens on the battlefield. There's so many ways where we could just spread out the damage. I do like effects like Perforos God of the Forge, War Leader's Call, and Vile Smasher Gleeful Grenader. Each of these Impact Trimmer like effects are extremely powerful in the deck because of course we're making so much token copies of cards with memory counters on them from exile with our commander attacking. Each time they'll just re-enter the battlefield, which all these ETBs will play an effect. Unfortunately, Vile Smasher based off of ETB will deal 1 damage to one opponent, all the while War Leader's Call and Perforos are the better options. War Leader's Call is an anthem and will deal 1 damage to each opponent based off a creature entering the battlefield. Perforos will deal 2 damage to each opponent based off a creature entering the battlefield. So if you have 5 creatures exiled with memory counters on them and you swing it with your commander, 5 creatures will enter the battlefield. With Perforos triggering, you'll deal 10 damage to each opponent, which could be pretty critical in the late game. Because you're making tokens, it's important to include Mirkwood Bats, mainly because whenever you create or sacrifice a token, each opponent loses 1 life. This is an incredible drain effect because of course if we have 5 tokens entering the battlefield, we'll drain each opponent for 5 life, and if we sacrifice those tokens, we'll drain each opponent for 5 more life. As a reminder, your commander will exile at the end of combat, so you'll want to make sure you have sacrifice outlets to sacrifice those tokens to trigger some more with Mirkwood Bats. Also, your commander's ability is an attack trigger, so getting extra combats using cards like Great Train Heist and Aurelia the War Leader are excellent options. The more we attack with our commander, the more we can take advantage of his ability by making more tokens on the battlefield with memory counters on them. So I mainly wanted to skim over some options for you there. Because a lot of creatures are ETBing all at the same time, Cathar's Crusade is incredible for 3 and 2 white. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So if you have that 5 creatures entering the battlefield that are tokens, you'll buff up all your creatures with 5 +1/+1 counters on them. And of course, this can scale with depending on how much creatures you do have on the battlefield. Either way, this is just going to be extremely powerful. Everybody knows this. Because you are an aggressive strategy, Chroma's Will is probably going to be another good game closer for you. It does have the ability to choose one, or if you control your commander, you can choose both options. The first option is creatures you control gain Flying, Vigilance, and Double Strike until end of turn, or creatures you control gain Lifelink, Indestructible, and Protection from all colors until end of turn. So what you can do is swing in with your commander, make those token copies of those creatures with memory counters on them, and then after that, during combat, you'll cast a Chroma's Will so that you give everything all those abilities. And you'll want to make sure you do that before combat damage so that you can make sure you swing in and go for victory from there. So with that said, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video on Altair. I'm not going to try to pronounce the rest of it because that's just going to be way too embarrassing. Either way, this is a pretty incredible commander. Let me know down below in the comments, what are your thoughts and opinions about it? Do you plan on building it yourself? Also, if you can, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. With that out of the way, thank you for stomping by.